And we are back with another Q&A. Welcome to the end of January. We're going to close it out with some of your questions. If you have a burning question or today's episode makes you think about a question or something you just want to know, it can be about homeschool. It can be about me personally. It can be about motherhood. It can be about faith, anything. There's going to be a link in the show notes, so go ahead and submit your questions so that the next Q&A, I can answer your question. It can be done completely anonymously. So the questions today are very different from one another, but I'm excited to get into them, and hopefully it gives you a little bit of insight. I feel like with people's stories, you can always find a little bit about yourself and your story and your family in them, even if the question isn't straightforward exactly like you. There's always something that we can take away, and I think it's just good to hear from other people's experiences, and these questions really help you to get to know the other moms that are listening to this podcast and just to understand the community and the various Christian homeschool moms that do listen to Little by Little Homeschool. So welcome to today's episode. I am your host, Leigh Nguyen of Little by Little Homeschool. I am so thankful that you are here, and I just pray and hope that it is an encouragement to you as you listen to each of the episodes or pick and choose which ones you would like to listen to, topics that interest you. But I'm glad that you have stopped by today to get into this Q&A. So let's do it now. The very first question says, I am wondering if you have any thoughts on expectations you might have had about your kids that just don't seem to be in God's plans. We have one son and 3 daughters. My 10-year-old son isn't athletic at all, but is bent toward being creative and artistic. Things like drawing for long periods of time, hours of Lego creations that turn out quite well. I find this great, but also difficult sometimes when he has no desire to pick up a ball and join the other boys at co-op, at a park, and so on. It's hard to watch other friends' kids be on sports teams with natural talent. God has blessed us with a very sweet, intelligent boy, but how do I work through these thoughts when I feel like the expectations I had aren't working out? Have you experienced anything like this? Thank you so much. Yes, I have, and I think we all have. We come into parenting, into motherhood, and we just have some expectations, especially if something is very important. Now, she didn't mention that sports were important to her. I don't know if this mom is athletic, if maybe she played sports when she was in school or not, because that really can influence. Now, I have friends who were you'll know how much I am into sports. They were very sporty. They were very athletic, played sports, and they married their husband. He is also very athletic, and their kids have picked up on that naturally, and it's just been what they do. And so I don't know if that's where you're coming from. You and your husband are athletic or not, but it can go for anything. Maybe you are a family that enjoys sitting and having tea time and reading poetry, and you have one child that would rather be out there kicking a soccer ball or throwing a football or bouncing a basketball, and it just doesn't seem to jive. We are called to homeschool the child in front of us. If you did not listen to the episode a little bit back where I talked about some insight that I had received from my homeschool graduates, this right here is key. I want you to go and listen to that episode. If you did not, if you did listen to it, you're like, okay, yes, this is going to have a little bit of overlap with that. We are called to parent the child in front of us. God has endowed them with some gifts, talents, and abilities. And I do have an episode about that because I think it's really important. I'm going to drop that link in the show notes for you. I think it's really important for us to recognize the child that is in front of us that will keep us from causing frustration to them and to help the relationship when we acknowledge how God has created them, their personality, their natural bents, their gifts, their talents, and abilities. Those are often things that they just have. It's just their bent. It's the way that they are. So your 10-year-old son isn't athletic. Now listen, not a sports person at all. I consider myself a little bit athletic now that I've done strength training. I'm like, okay, I'm not so scared if you were to throw me a football, but compared to other athletic people, I'm not. And my husband is not either. I mean, you can ask him to play and do something. He would be way much better if you were to say, hey, let's go play basketball. Way much better than I would just to pick it up and do it. But that just isn't our focus. But our kids did play sports. They were interested in it. They warmed the bench quite a bit. They were very enthusiastic about the sports that they were in. This is mostly my boys. But they also had things that they were really good at. And I think that it's okay I think it's totally okay, actually. If he doesn't want to go and join in with the boys at the co-op and do things, if he would rather sit there and read a book, have his nose in a book, or sit there with a drawing pad and draw things. Now, I think it is important to get our kids moving and to get them outside. And there were times my daughter was an absolute bookworm. And I would be like, go outside. And I'd be like, okay, you need at least 15, 20, 30 minutes, whatever time I would set for, depending upon the age she was. No books. No reading. It sounded so mean for me to say that, but I wanted her to go out and I wanted her to run around with her brothers. I wanted her to climb trees. I wanted her to roll in the grass. I didn't want her necessarily to have her nose in a book the entire time. And so it sounded mean, but she actually looks back now. She's like, thank you for doing that, because I would have just sat there, hunched over a book and read the entire time. So I think it's good for us to then kind of push our kids a little bit, because we know that movement is really good for them and healthy for them. But also it's just is a lot of heart work that we have to do, and praying and surrendering. God, help me not to place expectations upon this child about the way that they should be because of the way that I think that they should be. And help me just to recognize who they are, and help me to draw that out. Help the Holy Spirit just to come upon me and help me to draw out of them who God has created them to be. Because they have likes and dislikes, and this will become way more evident, and your relationship will be better. If he's 10, when you are 20, he will appreciate so much more and be thankful that you didn't push him down a certain path that wasn't the way that he was wired. If he likes to be creative and artistic, you might look back someday and say, oh, this all makes sense. I think that happens a lot with our kids. We look and we're like, where are they going to use this and to glorify God, or as a job or as a hobby? Where is this going to come into play? And it's not until they're older and you see. So yes, I have encountered this. To the mom that submitted this, I have experienced this. I feel like I experienced this a little bit with all three of my kids, and I wanted them to be a certain way. Maybe not necessarily just with this, but God had different plans and other plans, and they are individual people that create in the image of God, and it's our great blessing to be able to parent them, and God has put you together on purpose. And the two of you, you and your 10-year-old son, are going to be a mighty force for the kingdom of God, okay? The second question is, I'm struggling with an extremely hyper ADHD child. Keeping him on task is extremely difficult. He's so easily sidetracked, and with having to keep an eye on homeschooling and his siblings, I feel like the second I walk out of the room for a brief 30 seconds, he's taken off doing something else. Or I help a sibling with work, he's coloring on notebooks. Do you have any recommendations for someone who struggles so much to stay on task? I do break his homeschool down to about an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon, with some random fun homeschool options thrown in throughout the day. I'm also constantly making new centers and trying to make it as fun as possible. Now, I'm not quite sure how old this child is, and siblings as well, if the siblings are older or younger. So I don't know if I'll hit the nail on the head totally with this one. But first, it sounds like, if this is your question, or if you are dealing with this, it sounds like you are trying so hard and you are doing well. We as homeschool moms get so focused on the part that is not going well that we don't stop and actually look and say, look at these really cool centers that I have made for him to have fun and to learn with. Don't ignore that part. Don't ignore the parts that you are actually doing. You're doing homeschool with him for an hour in the morning and an hour in the afternoon. There's nothing wrong with that. You are doing what is best for him. Now, some ideas. Well, first I'm going to put a caveat here. I have not personally raised an extremely hyper ADHD child, okay? We're going to put that out there. So this is my ideas and stuff could be completely off base. I would encourage you maybe to get onto Facebook and to try to find some groups. There are niche homeschool groups out there. They will just be something that'll be like nationwide or worldwide. So put in some keywords. You can put homeschool ADHD child or something, and see what comes up. And maybe you'll find some really good ideas and be able to connect and bounce some ideas off of some other homeschool moms. So off the top of my head, if maybe you're doing an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, if that's too much for you to sit down and sit still for an hour because there are other siblings, then maybe make it half an hour or 15 minutes. It might be 15, 20 minutes every 2 hours. That might not be plausible. That might not be actual reality. If these siblings are younger and there's anybody taking a nap, then optimize that type of time so that you can, when you sit down to work with your child that's easily sidetracked, that has ADHD, then you can 100% be there and not have to worry about other siblings getting into danger or anything. Maybe they don't all nap. Maybe that is the 45 minutes that they get to sit and have screen time. Now, the other child might say, well, what about me? I don't get screen time. Well, then they get screen time at a different time. That way, maybe you know that they're contained, they're okay. And another option could be maybe if dad is home in the evening, maybe that's when you can work one-on-one with your child so that it doesn't feel frustrating and that maybe he gets frustrated too. Now I'm saying, oh yeah, she does say he. Okay, good. I didn't want to associate he or she if I was wrong. But for those moments that you walk out, I mean, I feel like most boys are like this to a degree. They get distracted. They just they get sidetracked. Mom isn't there to kind of stay over them. But it sounds like this is a lot more than just that. But maybe in the evening when but maybe that's not a good time. Maybe that's a time that your kiddo is just kind of like, I'm done with the day. But just be getting creative and know that sometimes when it comes to homeschool, there is one child that's going to require a bit more of our time and our effort. And I pray that over time, with that time and that effort and energy that you put into him, that you will start to see fruit and that you'll be able to see that he becomes more focused and that you're able to leave him for little bits of time as he gets older and he stays on task, and you find ways to encourage him and to maybe reward him. And as he gets older, then he doesn't require as much of your energy and your time and your devotion for the homeschool. And then you have that time for the younger kids as well. And the last and final question, she says, in your experience, do many homeschool parents feel uncertain about teaching music? Either because they don't have a musical background or because they're not sure what a solid music curriculum should even look like. So she says, I create music education materials designed for home use, and I'm always curious how big of a need this really is in the homeschool community. Now, you're listening, and this is most likely not you and doesn't necessarily apply to you because you're not creating music curriculum and programs and stuff. But listen to me here, though, because I want to talk a little bit about teaching music to your kids. Just like we talked about in the very first question about how some families might be more musical or more sports-oriented or whatever it is. If your family is really sports-oriented, then maybe not music. You're like, yes, I can know how to turn on the radio. I know how to listen to Spotify music, or I know the type of music that I listen to. There's a lot of families that are not musical and don't know a lot about music, but we realize the importance of that, of teaching our kids music and helping them to appreciate music. And so is there a need for things? Yes. Some families really want to dig in deep to music because maybe their kids are interested in it. And sometimes there's moms who are like, I have no idea how to teach music. And so I would like some type of music program to walk us along this journey because I don't even know where to start. I took a more laid back approach when it came to the music. I don't recall us ever doing anything formal. We might have done some composer studies. We listened to a lot of music. And if I had a child, if they were taking some type of musical lessons, I included that because they were learning theory. I'm like, okay, that's their music for their year. They're taking piano lessons. So I had one that played the piano and one that played the drum. Another one, we tried the piano. That did not go well. And we stopped. That child is not musical at all. That child can turn the radio on now as a young adult. And that's okay. Again, they have their strengths and their maybe weaknesses, but really, if you're weak in understanding music, you could be okay in regular normal life. But if you're weak in music and you want to be a music major, a composer or something, then that's not really going to work. So a lot of families maybe don't have musical backgrounds, but there are resources out there. So let me just end and just say that if you are a homeschool family or a homeschool mom that feels like you don't know how to teach music, there are options out there. Now, going back to Monday's episode when I said, focus on the things that are important to you, and then it's okay to say no to the things that are not important to you. Remember, we rounded out Monday's episode with that thought. If them learning music is important to you, it can be important for a year, and you can really get in deep and they can learn a lot about music and theory and composers and different genres of music. You could do that. Or you could be like, that's not important really for this year. We're just going to kind of glaze over it. I remember playing a lot of classical music when my kids were younger, and especially during homeschool, just nice in the background. It was just something that could kind of like fill the silence. And it's kind of funny because they will hear that music now as they're older and like, I recognize this song. And I'd be like, is this Mozart? I'm like, oh my goodness, they do remember these things. So anyway, this was a fun episode. If you have a question that you would like me to answer, I would love to answer that. Go ahead and check out the link in the show notes and submit that for the next Q&A. Have a great day.